darkest moments, courage is what spurs every one of us to survive adversities and keep on living for our dreams and our loved ones. But even the most courageous of us all need the proper support, especially in health and wellness. You have that support in Allianz, the world's #1 insurance brand. With Allianz Well, you are protected from the uncertainties life throws at you. Wherever you are in the world, we are with you. Even in moments when you don't have time to rest, you have the best people ready to help you and to ensure your health and well-being so you can live a happy and fulfilling life. With Allianz Well, you have a partner that you can always depend on. Together, let's live life courageously.
Building a home for your family in the Philippines? Get connected with the right partner. Your house and lot, condominium, home improvement, and loan takeout is made easy with PNB's own Philippine Home Loan. It's available for both kabayans and foreigners at PNB Los Angeles, New York, Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, United Kingdom, and Middle East. OPHL allows borrowers to pay in local currency without remittance fees. Qualified borrowers must also have good credit standing, stable employment, and sufficient disposable income. Loan up to 80% of the property value and enjoy easy payment terms. Visit or call your nearest overseas PNB branch to apply today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here with us here in Singapore and to all our viewers across the globe. Welcome to our 3rd annual Bayanihan Lecture. This is Minerva Lau, a member of the board of the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore and your host this afternoon. We sincerely hope you are all keeping safe and well wherever you are. And we greatly appreciate you taking time off today, Sunday, to spend it with us. Before we begin, here are some gentle reminders. For those in the Zoom meeting room, we seek your cooperation in keeping your Zoom app to mute to avoid disruptions. Please stay seated and stay present until the end. After the keynote speech, there will be a brief Q&A session. Please send your questions via the Zoom chat or via FB Live comments. We thank our sponsor, PNB Singapore, with their Allianz PNB Life Insurance team for supporting this year's Bayanihan Lecture 2021. And now, may I invite Attorney Ranveer Kumar Singh, the Honorary President of the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore, to deliver his welcome remarks. Attorney Ranveer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Minnie. Your Excellency, Ambassador Joseph Delmaya, Ambassador of the Republic of Philippines to Singapore, our keynote speaker, Father Aristotle C Dy, President of the ERDA Foundation in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our Bayanihan Lecture 2021. For those who are uninitiated about the Philippine Bayanihan Society, if I might just take some time to introduce you to the society. The Philippine Bayanihan Society of Singapore, or in short known as PBSS, was established 20 years ago, as you would have seen from the video clip, in 2001 by the Embassy of the Philippines to provide a platform for Filipinos in Singapore to upskill themselves, to foster better understanding on art and culture of the peoples of Singapore and the Philippines, and to integrate Filipinos into the mainstream Singapore society. PBSS collaborates very closely with the Embassy of the Philippines to achieve its objectives. It also works closely with the Filipino community groups in Singapore, who are known as the Philpop groups, and other social service agencies and other organizations in Singapore. The annual Bayanihan Lecture is an illustration of one such collaboration. The PBSS is managed by a team of volunteers, supported by a full-time secretariat and a very small staff. PBSS operates a Bayanihan Center where most of its activities are held. You'll see the Bayanihan Center, which is at the background of my screen. However, since the advent of COVID-19 in early last year, many of our activities where possible have been migrated online because of the restrictions, obviously, in using the Bayanihan Center. The PBSS collaborates, as I mentioned, very closely with the embassy in organizing upskilling courses, a wide range of upskilling courses, including workshops, talks, social and cultural activities throughout the year. And you must have seen a glimpse of those activities in the video clip just now. Apart from those activities, there are some significant key activities which we hold every year. First, we hold in the beginning of the year an annual Bayanihan walk. The purpose of this walk is to raise funds for activities, plus at the same time to galvanize all the Filipino community groups to work together with us. Secondly, we hold a Bayanihan lecture around this time, which is also the time of our anniversary. Thirdly, we hold Bayanihan talks on webinars now every fortnightly. And fourthly, we hold Bayanihan Kultura also on the webinar right now, catering to more cultural activities. The Bayanihan Lecture is an annual event, as we heard from Minnie just now, that this is the third one that we are having this year. During the Bayanihan Lecture, we invite one or more keynote speakers to share their thoughts and experiences in delivering community service for the betterment of everyone and to build social capital. This is the third lecture, and we are very fortunate to have Father Aristotle C Dy as our keynote speaker, and he has kindly agreed to our invitation. His subject matter of his talk is very topical. As you must have seen from the publicity materials, his talk is titled Bayanihan During COVID-19 Pandemic Experiences and Future Directions. Now, I would like to thank our sponsors for this event, the Philippine National Bank Singapore branch, along with its affiliate companies, the Alliance PNB Life Insurance, who have sponsored our talk for this afternoon. I would like to express my own appreciation to Ambassador Yap, officials and staff of the embassy in collaborating with this event. I would also like to express my appreciation to all the Philippine groups who have assisted us in organizing this event. And of course, last but not least, my organizing committee who have helped me in organizing this event. Special thanks I would say would go to Ms. Christine Vicentina, Ms. Minnie Lau, who's moderating and hosting this event, Ms. Marianne Chua, the hardworking secretary of Bayanihan Society, Edwin Luan, helping us with the technical aspects, and our tireless secretariat, Ms. Cecil Regina and Mindy Mastrider. I hope you will enjoy the talk this afternoon. I'm sure you will. And please participate actively during the panel discussion which we have for you later on. Thank you and have a nice afternoon. With this, I hand back the proceedings to Ms. Minnie Lau.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Ransdorf, for that message. May I now I'm delighted to invite His Excellency, the Philippine Ambassador to Singapore, Mr. Joseph Del Maria, to share his inspirational message. Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Minnie. Father Aristotle C Dy, President of the ERDA Foundation and Xavier School, and our keynote speaker this afternoon. Mr. Ranveer Singh, Honorary President of the Philippine Bayanihan Society, Singapore. Board members of PBSS, partners, friends, my dear kababayans, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. A very warm welcome to all of our audience who are joining us here in Singapore, from the Philippines, or from any other parts of the world. Thank you for joining the 2021 Bayanihan Lecture. The Bayanihan Lecture was launched in 2019 during the Golden Jubilee of Philippine-Singapore bilateral relations to serve as a platform where the audience would be able to gain fruitful insights on the topic of Bayanihan from esteemed resource speakers who have made a significant contribution to social and community service. At the inaugural Bayanihan Lecture in 2019, we learned about the collective impact of social entrepreneurship from the talks given by Dr. Anton Marie Lim of the Yellow Boat of Hope Foundation and Mr. Sam A. Sharma of Flight Experience Singapore. Last year at the second Bayanihan Lecture, we learned how the Bayanihan spirit prevailed in the Philippines amidst the COVID-19 pandemic through the lecture of retired Philippine Ambassador Minda Calagian Cruz. Our resource person this afternoon has dedicated most of his life to serving his fellow men as a member of the clergy, an academic, and a community leader. Today, Father Aristotle D, or Ari, Father Ari, as he is fondly called, will share with us his Bayanihan experiences over the last 2 years and on how the organizations he is leading, the ERDA Foundation and Xavier School, have responded in their own impactful way to the most affected and needy sectors of our society. Based on these first-hand experiences, Father Ari will also share with us his insights on how we can institutionalize the spirit of Bayanihan in our communities, even after the world has conquered COVID-19. I would also just like to take this opportunity to share with Father Ari that we have a big Filipino community here in Singapore, numbering around 200,000. Whenever disasters strike in the Philippines, the Filipino community in Singapore are always among the first to respond by sending help back home. And oftentimes, these initiatives remain unpublicized. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic last year, the Filipino community also helped by sending PPEs and medical supplies, not only to the Philippines, but also to the Filipino community in Papua New Guinea, for example, who were then struggling with the availability of supplies. As Philippine ambassador here for almost 4 years, I can assure you that the spirit of Bayanihan is very much alive in the Filipino community. I'm sure that after they hear about the work of ERDA, the Philcom here in Singapore would be more than happy to help. Again, thank you, Father Ari, for agreeing to be our guest of honor for the third annual Bayanihan Lecture. Maraming salamat at mabuhay.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Joseph, for those inspiring words. Life as we know it has never been the same, indeed, since this aggressive coronavirus was discovered causing this pandemic around the world. It's almost coming to 2 years and people are still suffering and dying. However, we witnessed a lot of the Bayanihan spirit everywhere, and it is really very much alive. Today, indeed, is a special Sunday, for we are honored and privileged to have a distinguished keynote speaker who will share with us his Bayanihan spirit experiences, as well as his insights on the future amidst this pandemic. Father Aristotle C Dy of Society of Jesus, our keynote speaker, is a renowned academician who began his career as a conversational Mandarin teacher at Sacred Heart School in Cebu City. He obtained his first degree in business management from the Ateneo de Manila in 1993, during which he spent one summer as a management trainee at SGV, which is one of the leading accounting firms in the Philippines. However, as we all know, Father Ari, as he's commonly called, took a different path and entered the Society of Jesus in 1993, making his first vows in 1995. He was ordained as a deacon in 2003, and a year later, he became an ordained priest. He took his full vows as a Jesuit priest in 2020. Father Ari graduated with a master's degree in theological studies in the same year, in addition to another MA degree in philosophy in 1999. In 2013, he was awarded Doctor of Philosophy degree in the study of religions by the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. From 2000 to 2008, being an academician, he was a lecturer and subsequently became officer in charge of the Chinese Studies program at the Ateneo de Manila. During the same period, he was involved in many things. He was publications manager, finance officer, and then executive director of Jesuit Communications, writing and editing a number of papers and publications during this period and thereafter. Father Ari was also appointed National Secretary for the CBCP, Chinese Filipino Apostolate, and he currently chairs the Chinese Filipino Apostolate Cluster for the Philippine province of Society of Jesus. In 2013, he was elected president of Xavier School, a Jesuit Catholic college preparatory school, and he also became president of ERDA Group, which aims to help the poor but deserving Filipino children have access to education. That's a very impressive list of accomplishments, but without any further ado, before you get tired and bored, I'm now delighted and privileged to invite our keynote speaker, Father Aristotle C Dy of Society of Jesus, to take the floor. Father, it's all yours.
Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very much for that kind introduction. I should also thank Ambassador Joseph Delmar Yap of the Philippine Embassy to Singapore, and Mr. Ranveer Kumar Singh of the Philippine Bayanihan Society of Singapore for the very kind invitation for me to address this audience this year for the Bayanihan Lecture of 2021. When I received the invitation, it immediately sparked my interest because it brought me back to the memories of my time abroad doing graduate studies. Several years ago, I did a master's degree in Hong Kong, and there is also a Bayanihan Center there, very similar to yours. They also have a former school building for their headquarters, I think similar to the background picture I have here, which is, I think, the Singapore Bayanihan Center. And I would volunteer there. They would invite me to give some talks or to celebrate the Sunday Mass. Like yours, Bayanihan Center, they also offer livelihood and training courses so that the overseas Filipino workers can learn some skills that will continue to be useful to them even after their time in Hong Kong, especially when they go back to their own families. It was also a very good alternative to staying out in the streets and spending their day off on Sundays, just chit-chatting with everyone, with all their Filipino friends on the streets of Hong Kong, which, as you know, is a very familiar sight in Hong Kong and something that's already part of the popular imagination. Maybe it is not as true in Singapore, but the idea behind the Bayanihan Centers is really wonderful. It is a great vision, not just to have a place for people to gather, but for them to learn skills, for them to celebrate fellowship with one another and to use their time productively. So I am very happy to accept this invitation and to share with you some ideas about what Bayanihan might mean, some examples of it from recent experiences in the Philippines, and maybe some future directions. So let me now start sharing my screen. Here we are. So that is the poster that was used for promoting our talk. So let me just set that up. So thank you very much for the preparation of this poster and this dissemination of the invitation. So the title of my sharing is Bayanihan during the COVID-19 pandemic, experiences and future directions. So when you hear the word Bayanihan, this is the picture that always comes to mind. There are so many artworks that depict Bayanihan in this way. It is a rural scene. You have the menfolk of the community helping a family move their house from point A to point B. And because in the rural setting, the house is made of light materials, they can actually carry the entire house and bring it to its new location. So that's the typical image we have of Bayanihan. And you have traditional pictures like the previous one. You have also this kind of modern painting, but essentially depicting the same thing. The community helping a family move their house. And I was thinking that it's not only a thing of the past, something in our imagination. I found this picture where people are still able to do this activity, this act of helping a family move their house. So here you have not just an artwork, but a real experience of a rural house being transferred. And then there is this idea, which I found very interesting. I was thinking, is there Bayanihan in the Bible? And it is this scene from the ministry of Jesus Christ that came to my mind. You have Jesus teaching and preaching and healing the sick. And during the time of Jesus, even during our time, when you have a spiritual leader who is able to heal, then people will flock to him. So there was already a very big crowd with Jesus inside a house. But there is this sick man who has friends who care for him so much that they want him to be in the presence of Jesus and receive healing. So what did they do? The way the houses were designed during the time of Jesus, there was actually a staircase at the side of the house outside. So they went up that staircase, they bore a hole through the roof to be able to bring down their friend. It's also Bayanihan, several friends, several people carrying the sick and bringing him to Jesus. If you want to look that up, that's in Luke 5:18 to 20. So you have a need, you have friends who care enough for you, and they bring the friend to Jesus to receive healing. And Jesus is so moved by this act of faith, not that people will go to such lengths to bring the sick before him, that he gives the gift of healing to this man. So what is Bayanihan? What is Bayanihan? Beyond that popular image in our minds of carrying a house from point A to point B, I think we can say that Bayanihan is a core value for Filipinos. You mentioned the word, and that image comes to mind right away, of helping others. And it is based on love and compassion for the larger whole. It is not only for myself. It is really an act of concern for others. And that is why it is such a potent image. It is about how we can help others. And the image is so much a part of our cultural mindset that even during this time of pandemic, the government has a Bayanihan to Heal Act. It is actually a law, setting aside huge amounts, a budget to help the country cope with the pandemic. Bayanihan to Heal. I think there's already part 1, part 2, maybe even part 3. So Bayanihan is this collective effort to help others. It is not only for me, it is for others. And it is not only my effort, but the effort of a group, the effort of a community. That is Bayanihan. And what more can we say about it? What are some characteristics of Bayanihan? First, bayan, bayani. These are the words that we can cull from the word bayanihan. There is this idea of bayan, and there's the idea of bayani, or the hero. And this refers to both people and place. No, bayan, when we say inang bayan, it is the community of the nation. In every town, in every village, pag sinabi mong pupunta ako sa bayan, no, it also refers to the place, the center of the city, the center usually, where the parish church is, where the local government is, doon ang bayan, or the central marketplace. No? And when you say bayan, it can also mean ang bayang Pilipino, the people of the Philippines, bayan. And then bayani, bayani. This one refers more to people, no, heroes. The idea of the Filipino hero is somebody we call a bayani, bayaning Filipino. And fundamental to this is malasakit, no, or compassion for others, no, malasakit, that we can feel the pain of others so that we want to help. So at its core, there is that idea of kinship. You feel that you belong to a larger whole, no? And closely related to that, the sense of community, that you not only feel connected to a larger whole, you sense that you belong to it, and that this is larger than yourself or just your family. And therefore, when we practice bayanihan, it is not only a communal effort, it is also a departure from the perhaps Western idea of the individual superhero. If you look at Superman and Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, and the Avengers, you have individual heroes who have certain superpowers. But the Bayanihan spirit is a communal effort. It is not about just one person. You can have individual bayani, pero pag sinabi mong bayanihan, that is a group effort. No? And it is directed towards mutual aid. Whatever contributes to the common good. So in the image, the common good might be helping a family move a house, but it can mean many, many things. No? It can apply to many contexts, as long as there is that kinship, that belonging to a community, and that idea of providing mutual aid. So let me share with you some Bayanihan experiences. And maybe this is the most important or most interesting part of the talk, no? To talk about real experiences of Bayanihan, not just carrying houses around, but how in contemporary times, especially since last year, 2020 to 2021, how we have seen Bayanihan in action in the Philippines. I start not with the pandemic, but with something that was unfolding, or something that happened just as the pandemic was just starting. No? In January of 2020, Taal volcano in Tagaytay erupted, and it has continued being active even until now. Just recently, the alert level was raised again. So you have scenes like this unfolding in Batangas, in Tagaytay, in some parts of Laguna. There was great ash spewing forth, and the wind was blowing it as far away as New Valley, where Xavier School, where, as you heard, I am president, we have a campus there, no? And I happened to be there when Taal volcano erupted. I had an event, I had a mass, and then a meal at a nearby mall. And while my friends had to drive home back to Manila, all I had to do was drive back to the school, which is like, I don't know, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. But it was so difficult to make that short drive home because the ash was already up, raining. It was already descending on all of us. No, this is a picture of our school, and usually this is green grass. But just to give you an idea of what happened, no, everything was covered in ash. Everything turned black. And it was evening. I was driving home, and I had to stop because there was just zero visibility. I could not see anything. No, I only had a little water with me because before we left, people were saying, "Magbaan ka ng tubig. We have to have some water because our windshields were already covered in ash. You have to clean it so that you can improve your visibility. So I stopped and I was trying to get my bearings because I was in the middle of this big boulevard and I wasn't sure what to do. And before I could decide what I wanted to do, another vehicle, an L300 van, stopped beside me. And then the driver got out and he knocked on my window and he wanted to give me a liter of water. This is a complete stranger. He just wanted to help me because he saw me stuck there and maybe he had a lot of water and he wanted to help me. Total stranger. And I have a vivid memory of that because I thought, how random. This guy just appears in the dark of night and with all this ash falling on us, and he wanted to help. And I very politely said, actually, may tubig po ako. Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat at tumigil kayo. Thank you so much that you stopped to try to help me. So that is bayanihan. You feel that somebody in trouble is connected to you and you want to help. You want to do something to help. I start with that because when the volcano erupted, there were so many stories of people doing that. Just extending whatever help they could to the victims. For example, as I told you, the cars were covered in ash, like that. Like this picture, you see a van that is covered in ash, in mud, and the trip could not proceed. The journey could not proceed. So then you have people coming out of their houses in the streets and then realizing that the people who were traveling could not continue. They just offered water. They took out their hoses. Ayan, ganyan. They were helping people just wash down the ash so that they could help and let the journey proceed. And all of this for free, refusing to accept any payment. And it wasn't only water. There were people who were stranded, who had difficulty traveling. So again, you have people coming out of their houses, offering water to drink, offering some sandwiches, some food. That I thought was bayanihan. Not really organized through a big organization, but really just the effort of ordinary people to help their fellow Filipinos. So that's the eruption of Taal volcano and all the bayanihan spirit that was manifested during that time. In other contexts, we also see bayanihan in action. And I just say here, disaster relief is always an example of bayanihan. Our country is visited by so many typhoons and other natural disasters like earthquakes. And every time there is a natural disaster, it's not only the government that springs into action. So often it is the private sector, ordinary people who are thankfully spared from the worst of the disaster, and then they go out of their way to help others. So you see here an example of a recent flood in Metro Manila, and you notice how the jeepneys, the vehicles are really submerged in water. And people just spring into action to help others. So traditionally, bayanihan is carrying a house. Here, there is a boat to help transport people to safety. There are policemen here working together with ordinary citizens to help. You see this always. There's a typhoon, there's a flood, there is some natural calamity. When that happens, the Filipino resilience, the Filipino bayanihan spirit is really there in action. Disaster relief. Moving now to the pandemic, since last year. One example of bayanihan that I was personally involved in is this project of KKK, Kalinga Contra Corona, initiated by the alumni of Xavier School. KKK, there is an echo there of the Katipunan, the effort to unite the nation against the colonizers. So it was an initiative of Xavier School with the alumni in coordination with our local government in San Juan and other community organizations to set up a supplementary healthcare facility to treat mild COVID cases. At the time, the terminology was PUIs and PUMs, persons under investigation or persons under monitoring. So it became the the San Juan COVID Kalinga Center, and we did this in a new senior high school, public school building of the government, which we turned into an isolation center. Today, there are many, many isolation centers. Every LGU has one, or two, or three. But KKK, the San Juan Kalinga Center, was set up in April of 2020 when the first surge happened. No, the first lockdown was in March, and our community, thanks to our alumni, really mobilized so quickly, raised funds, and set up this facility to help our local government, so that it's known as the first private isolation center in the country, privately set up but serving the local government. KKK, and nobody could have done this alone. There was a visionary, somebody who was inspiring the whole project, but so many people needed to help by donating money, donating supplies, and then volunteering, to set it up. We had doctors setting up the whole system, from admission to assignment to our room, to medical care, to food, to when they will be released, what are the protocols to be followed. This was absolutely new at that time, and it had to be set up very quickly. So in a matter of about 7 to 10 days, it was set up and in operation. So we operated this for 6 months and then turned it over to the local government at the end of September 2020. So here we have the signing of the MOU with the local government. And then this is a picture of the building, the school building that we converted into an isolation facility. One of our first donors was the Tzu Chi Foundation. And they're pictured here with me and our alumni because they lent us some equipment, some foldable plastic beds, to which we needed so much to set up the isolation center. So I offer this as an example of Bayanihan, a community getting together, not to lift a house and move it somewhere else, but to respond to an urgent need of the community. An isolation center, so that people who live in small houses or densely populated areas have a place to go to for isolation. Because if they stay home, we know what's going to happen. They will infect their other household members, and then COVID will spread more and more. So early on, there was this idea already that we need isolation centers. Today, it is happening. In some places like Quezon City, you cannot recover at home. They don't allow you to recover at home. They will really bring you to an isolation center so that you don't infect others. So this was an early effort at providing an isolation center for the local community. Next, I'd like to tell you about ERDA. ERDA is the Educational Research and Development Association, ERDA for short, founded in 1974 by this French priest. His name is Father Pierre Tritz, the Society of Jesus, a Jesuit like myself. And you see here in his bio that he lived to be 102 years old. He died 5 years ago in 2016. And here you have a picture of him with children, youth in a low-income community. Father Tritz was a missionary in China, but because of the change of regime there in the early 1950s, he came to the Philippines together with his other missionary companions, thinking that they could stay here for a while and then return to China. But that was not to be. They stayed in the Philippines. And while his companions went on to establish Xavier School and our local parish here, Mary the Queen, and other works in Cebu and Iloilo, Father Tritz earned for himself a degree in psychology, and he worked in secular universities among the youth. And then he realized that the Philippines, being a poor country, had a very high dropout rate. It was in 1974 when he was already 60 years old. He had done many things, working in the university belt, counseling, teaching. And then he saw a report saying that in public education in the Philippines, dropout rate is very high. And he wanted to do something about it. He was already 60 years old, and I emphasize that because these days 60 is the age of retirement. You become a senior citizen, and then you can receive all these benefits. It's really about enjoying life already when you're a senior citizen. But Father Tritz was just starting. From 1974 until he passed away, no, another 40 years there or so, he continued working among the poor. And his idea was very simple. We have to help public school children stay in school. Not just go to school, but stay in school. No, kasi nga ang taas ng dropout rate. The dropout rate was very high. And when he looked into it, he realized that even if public school education is free, as it is today, all the way to high school, it's not only about providing free tuition. You need so much social support to help children do well in school. For example, maybe there's no tuition fee to pay, but you need school supplies, you need a bag, you need a uniform, you need shoes, you need good nutrition, you need to eat well so that you can study well. These are the reasons why Filipino children drop out of public education. The social support is not there. So he endeavored to support the public school system by providing educational assistance. So he began with a small group of kids, and the work grew and grew and grew. It is still around today, beyond his death, because there has been a good transition to turn over to the next generation. But that is essentially the work of ERDA, to help public school children remain in school by providing the social support. No? So during the pandemic, how are we doing that? No? When there is no school, public school system went into this modular system. You know, private schools like ours, Xavier, we can go online. We have the means, the technology to do online school. But for public schools, as I'm sure many of you know, no, they don't have, even before the pandemic, they don't have enough resources. They don't have good libraries. So what more to expect all of them to have computers, laptops, tablets, internet connectivity, both for students and teachers. This is a very tall order. No? So they went into modular education. And that is how ERDA has continued to support public school children. How? Well, we continue to provide them with their school supplies. No? These are ERDA beneficiaries in Tondo, Manila, just to share with you or give a face to the children that we serve. Now, this is the children receiving their school supplies last school year. No, they are just about, they're about to, I mean, this is about the time that they're getting a little break. The school year started very late for the public schools, no, October, and then this year they're going to start in September. So provision of school supplies. And then these pictures to show you how they are doing modular learning, no? In their own homes, being assisted by their parents, looking at materials on their own, doing their homework. No, they continue to learn through modular learning. And for those who can set it up, blended, no, a little modular, a little online homeschooling. Here you see the school supplies being distributed with the cooperation of the parent leaders. That's one of the programs of ERDA. You know, you don't just bring children into the program, their parents have to be involved. That is an absolute requirement. No, we don't just dole out school supplies. We have to organize the families, especially the parents, so that they provide the support needed. So this was an activity to distribute school supplies. Our areas in Manila are Tondo and Navotas, no? So again, distribution of school supplies with the support of parent leaders. And here you have in Muntinlupa, meeting with the parent leaders to get them organized, how to do things like distribution of school supplies. And then we also have what we call the ERDA Junior Educators, JEs, who are our current scholars. They are also scholars of ERDA, but they are older students. So while observing health protocols, they accommodate the younger children who need tutorials, house to house yan, no? So they're wearing their masks, but they're doing some tutorial work. No? So I feel that these programs to help others during the pandemic to continue with education is also in line with the Bayanihan spirit. So it's not only school supplies, not only tutoring, there's also food. No? One of the biggest problems in public education is lack of nutrition. No, students who come to school without having eaten properly. Hindi nag-almusal, dediretso sa school. So during the pandemic, we also attended to this need by preparing and packing the lunches of the children to be distributed to them during school days. So they have these containers that are reusable. Again, the parents are organized so that they prepare the meals and deliver them to the children who are in the program. It has to be a holistic approach. That's really the point here, that you can't just expect public education to work without all this social support. And then we have partners like the Rise Against Hunger, practicing Bayanihan by remembering how important Christmas is to the Filipino family. So this foundation, Rise Against Hunger Philippines, prepared Noche Buena, that's a Christmas food basket for 5,000 families. No? And you have here our social workers helping to pack Noche Buena for the ERDA families last Christmas. Here you have a workshop, skills training, how to make PPEs, how to make face masks, and offered by Bayan Academy in Tondo, Manila. So these are just two examples of many, many partnerships we have to provide this holistic approach to education of Filipino youth. We also have ERDA ambassadors who are former ERDA scholars because they're really the best witnesses to what ERDA is trying to do. No? They practice Bayanihan when they give back or reach out to ERDA, especially during the pandemic. Here we have an online art exhibit of Erin Tejada, who is the daughter of an architect, Alvin, who is a former ERDA scholar. Of course, the joy of ERDA comes from seeing the young people be supported in the past, do well in school, go on to college. This fellow, Alvin, became an architect and has never forgotten the help he received from ERDA. So he organized, his daughter is an artist, so he organized this art exhibit for the benefit of current ERDA scholars. Okay, moving on now to another example, no? The Community Pantry, which I think you probably heard about. They started in April, no? And started by one person, this young lady, Patricia Non, no? If you see the picture on the right, you see a little cart with vegetables, a few canned goods, a little rice. And she said, this is just my personal effort to help those who are hungry during the pandemic. The government promises ayuda, especially during lockdowns. And here we are in another lockdown, no? And while the amounts seem very big, millions, billions, it cannot possibly reach everybody. No? It reaches people who are in the list, people who have documents, who are somehow connected to the government at the local level, so they become recipients. But so many people complain that they are not part of the list. They have received no assistance. So Patricia Non had this idea. She set up this little cart in her street in Maginhawa Street in Quezon City, and she put it there and she said, you just take what you need and you are also welcome to contribute. No? And if you're cynical, you might think, oh, that will not work, because if you put things out there for free, people will be greedy and they will take everything. And maybe there were a few instances of that, but by and large, that did not happen. People came and just take what they need for the day, and the rest they leave for other people to share in. No, this is Patricia Non on the other side, in the other picture. No, and this little movement started with one person, and then she gathered volunteers around her. It became a bigger effort, and then the idea just mushroomed all over the country. The last time I checked, the last report I saw said there are 6,000 community pantries throughout the country, because it's just such a wonderful idea. There's no corruption because there's no money involved. People donate in kind, or if they trust the organizer, they donate money so that it will be used to buy goods. There's never any cash distribution. So what a wonderful example of Bayanihan. People who have a little more in life. They're not rich, Patricia Non is not rich at all, no. But to offer what you have, like in the Bible, when the boy offers his bread and fish so that Jesus can multiply it for everybody. No, it is that kind of spirit. What you have, you offer, and then you take only what you need. You don't take more than that. No? This is such a moving example of Bayanihan for me. There's that sense of kinship, of community, that the people who are suffering, they are part of me. I am part of them. No? And we have to do something to help. So that's why there are now so many community pantries. ERDA, to go back to ERDA, also took up the idea. No? We set up community pantries also in the areas where we are active. And in our case, it's not just distributing goods, but cooked meals already. Parang soup kitchen. No? People come and get some food for themselves and their families. And this is an effort of ERDA. And there are many, many other examples. Even here in Xavier School, our teachers set up a pantry for the guards, the janitors, no, who have limited shifts, limited work because of the pandemic, because we're doing everything online. So to help them, not by giving them money, but gathering goods like rice and canned goods to give them, and vegetables to give them a better meal. Community pantries. What are other experiences of Bayanihan during the pandemic? You know, on the right here, this is one of our school gyms in Xavier School, and we lent it for the use of Mayani. This is a social enterprise. They are selling vegetables coming from the north because this became a problem also last year. There was lockdown. They could not transport directly to middlemen, tradespeople who will bring the vegetables to supermarkets and to local markets. So what Mayani did was they arranged for vegetables from Benguet, from Region 2 to be brought to Manila. And then they set up online ordering delivery of vegetables. So nobody has to go out kasi, di ba, pag lockdown, hindi tayo pwedeng lumabas. No? This industry really took off during the pandemic. No? You do everything online. So Mayani organized that. No? They linked the farmers to the direct markets so that the farmers will get their proper income, their share of the income from their vegetables. No? Very innovative idea that is still going on right now. And our little contribution to this is just to give them a big space where the vegetables can arrive and be sorted, and to serve all those ordering online. And Mayani is not the only one. Veggies for Good is another one. Veggies for Good serves another area. They are helping farmers from the Taytay Antipolo area, no? And linking them to markets in Metro Manila. So they believe in fair prices for farmers, sustainable work for out-of-school youth and mothers who do all the sorting and packing, decent pay for the riders, the people delivering the vegetables. And then the net effect of it is that families have access to fresh fruits and vegetables delivered to their doorstep. Moving on, what else are examples of Bayanihan in this time of pandemic? You know, one of the hidden costs of the pandemic is mental health. We all tried to survive, and we're very resilient. No, we're trying to survive the pandemic, but there's really a cost to it, and that is mental health. In education, we have realized this. No, even if we're able to do education, deliver our classes online, this doesn't mean that our young people are okay. We have not allowed them to go out of their houses since March of last year. Imagine that. A year and a half, you're just at home. If you have a perfect family, if you have a loving family where all the relationships are okay and there are no problems, maybe it's tolerable. But what if you have a so-called dysfunctional family? If the members of the family are quarreling all the time, and then you have no escape. You cannot go out. You cannot go to school and be with your friends and have an outlet. You cannot go to the park or the mall to have your own personal time. You are constantly at home. If you're a teenager, you want to be with your friends. This is the time of your life when it's so important to socialize, to have friends, to do things together. And then that's not possible. You can only do things online. Of course, there are many things we can do online, but it doesn't replace the social interaction face to face. There's no replacement for that. So we really cannot assume that we can go on like this. Maybe Singapore is in a better place in this regard, but in the Philippines, this is a very big concern. The number of people with psychological problems, self-harm, suicide, it is happening. But a lot of the time it is under the radar. Nobody wants to go public with it. But we know that it is a problem. In our school, we have subscribed to this group. I'm not promoting them, but just letting you know that there are groups, maybe not enough of them, that are helping to address this. So Mind Nation is a group of psychologists, and what they offer is 24/7 assistance to our young people. If they want to talk, if they are anxious, if they are having thoughts of harming themselves, there's always somebody they can reach out to. So 24/7 assistance via messenger. And then if they need to book a session with a psychologist, that is also available to them. So Mind Nation is only one of many groups. Other groups are also there to provide assistance, some of it for free. But the insight really is that there's not enough. There are more problems than there are providers of solutions or of assistance. I remember distinctly last September when we launched this program in school. We have a way to monitor how many people are availing. The very next day, so many people signed up. So many young people, especially high school, they signed up and wanted to talk to somebody. So we have continued with this on its second year. And this is just an example. But I think that is Bayanihan also. When the adults, when those who know better, who want to look out for the young people, get together, organize something to address mental health concerns. I think this is something very real in the 21st century. Certainly, I'm 9 years now as head of school here. This is one of the biggest surprises to me. That I'm here not just to make sure things are running well, provide good education, but what was an eye-opener for me is the great need for mental health programs, not just for the young people, but even for the adults. We live in a very stressful time, even before the pandemic, and more so during the pandemic when we are all cooped up in our homes. All kinds of issues come up, and people need to talk about it. People need to process their feelings. So I think this is a great insight we need to understand. Bayanihan din yun. If we are able to understand that this is a reality in the community, especially among the young, and we need to provide assistance to them. Online programs or other programs. But it begins with recognizing the need, becoming aware that this is a reality. You cannot just tell young people that you are being so maarte, or you're being that you are not strong enough, that you're very weak because a little issue and you get very anxious, you get very depressed. Older people sometimes have that reaction. Why are these young people so vulnerable? They're not like us. When we grew up, we had so many hardships and we put up with so much to survive. Yes, but we live in a different time. Every generation has its own experiences. We cannot expect them to be like the older generation. So all of this just to say mental health, very big need in the 21st century, where we have experienced some Bayanihan, but we need to do a lot more. Next, and moving towards the end of the examples, Philippine embassies assistance to nationals, OFWs helping other OFWs, especially the undocumented. I stumbled upon this website of Filipino programs in in the Netherlands, no? And the organizer said, we are Filipinos, we do Bayanihan, to help each other. So undocumented migrants in the Netherlands during COVID-19, that's the website. What was the insight there? No, they realized that there are many OFWs who are undocumented, who don't have the right papers. They don't have access to social services, to social support. So the OFWs organize themselves to provide food to those who lost their jobs, no, because of the lockdowns, many domestic helpers lost their jobs. There's no work because they're not allowed to go to the private homes. So no income, no food. So OFWs organizing food support and other kinds of assistance to their fellow OFWs, especially the undocumented. And then the assistance also coming from embassies. You know, when I studied abroad, this is something that struck me also very, very much. That our Philippine embassies have such a thing as assistance to nationals. I don't know if other countries also do this, no? Certainly from our experience in the Philippines, in Manila, sometimes when you have foreigners who get into problems with the law, you contact their embassies. Their embassies, sometimes they don't seem interested to help their nationals, no? But for the Philippines, it's part of the program. There's really assistance to nationals to do what they can to help Filipinos abroad who are in need of assistance, any kind of assistance. No? When I was studying in the UK several years ago, I was very touched also by the Filipinos who would volunteer to help fellow Filipinos. One lady I met and visited several times in her house, you know, the embassy calls on her when there is an undocumented Filipino who has nowhere else to go, who needs a place to stay until the papers can be fixed, they can find another job, or they can go home to the Philippines. Of course, the embassy doesn't have housing, no? So they rely on the Filipinos there to help fellow Filipinos. So that kind of coordination, that kind of facilitation, I think is Bayanihan, because you tap the resources in the community. It's not one person working, but tapping the resources in the community to help those in need. So thus far, all these little examples of Bayanihan in the time of pandemic from 2020 to 2021. Now, in this part towards the end, I'd like to talk about challenges to Bayanihan. Now, what are some challenges that we can identify for this idea of Bayanihan? First of all, kinship. So I go back to the characteristics earlier and perhaps go deeper. No? The foundation of Bayanihan is that you feel that sense of kinship with others. No? But we are very, very family-centered as Filipinos, perhaps as Asians. Family first. Sometimes it's even right or wrong, family first. We will go to great lengths to protect our families, to provide for our families. No? And our idea of family is very expansive. It's not only my immediate family, it's also my parents, my brothers and sisters, their spouses, their children. You know, one of the big realities in the Philippines, for example, is you have housing projects, for example. The housing project is availed of by one family, husband, wife, children. Before you know it, after they move in, the parents of the husband and wife will also come. No? Their siblings will also come. Everybody who needs something, who is in need of a place to stay, they will also come. So a small unit, a small housing unit intended for maybe 5 people, now 15 people live there. No? We are that kind of family-centeredness. We cannot say no. Many, perhaps, our OFWs feel that if you have a family member asking you for help, ang hirap tumanggi. You cannot say no. And so you keep helping, keep helping. No? So on the one hand, that's good. No? We are very generous people. We will help. But for Bayanihan to work, we need to expand our horizon. It's not only family. It's not only my immediate community. That's already progress, no? When you can see beyond family to take care of your community, but can you go even beyond that? No, one writer calls it entering into the chaos of another. To be concerned, even if it's not your family, not your community, but just somebody from your country, a fellow Filipino. We have Bayanihan. From time to time, we participate in it. Kasi in that classic example, carrying a house from point A to point B, it's a one-shot activity. When the house has been delivered, finished. No? But can Bayanihan be something more long-lasting? No? Something beyond one-time activities. So for the sense of community to constantly expand. No? If you think beyond the family, then think of your barangay. Oh, one good effect of the pandemic, sa Viber, there is now a barangay Viber group in our own local community here in San Juan, and this is replicated throughout the whole country. Biglang yung mga kapitbahay mo na hindi mo naman kilala, suddenly the neighbors or the people living in your own little geographical unit, suddenly we have a community online. No? And there we share concerns about garbage collection, cleanliness, crime, things we need from the government. So that's an advance. No? We feel that we belong to this unit, which is very hard to attain now when you're living in a big city or a big metropolis like Metro Manila. No? You can go on for years, especially you live in a condominium, but you don't know your neighbors. You don't know the people who live in your building. Because of the pandemic, that has changed. Suddenly there are all these, and because we have the technology, we have Viber, WhatsApp, Telegram, Messenger, we can create groups. So that's a good development. And that needs to continue expanding from the barangay to the city, the province, the region, the country. In short, to give thought and to prioritize the bigger unit over one's own family. Certainly over oneself and over one's own family. One reality we face as Filipinos is that we are very regionalistic. So meron naman, we can expand our circles, no? But somehow we're very tribal. No? We have that sense of belonging, but it's very hard to see the sense of belonging for the nation, for the country. We often limit ourselves to our particular region. One of the things that surprised me when I was studying abroad is the number of Filipino associations. Ang dami. There are just so many Filipino associations. And you have the religious groups, religious associations, but you also have geographical associations. The Zamboangueños have their association. The Cebuanos in the UK, very strong, is the Batangas Association. No? And they're very organized with officers, annual general meeting, projects, etc. And then there was also Bicol Association. And that surprised me because of the development. Now, first, there was only one Bicol Association for all the Bicolanos. But during my time there, they started setting up smaller associations. No? Merong Albay, merong Camarines, merong Peña Francia. So they started dividing into subgroups. That's another phenomenon, let's call it that, among Filipino communities. Why do we see the mushrooming of groups? Parami ng parami. Even in the church, mind you. No? And if you look at the history, very often, what is the reason why there are more groups? Because there was a fight. There was a quarrel between two leaders over, I don't know, usually money or projects or vision, direction. And because they cannot agree, then a breakaway group is organized. So then the original group breaks into two. And then the same thing will happen again. There will be internal squabbling, and then yet another group will be formed. So more and more groups being formed. So this is the challenge to Bayanihan? How can we really get together and see beyond our differences? No? Why is the solution always to start another group, to perpetuate the conflict, to perpetuate the hostility? Sometimes it really goes on for years and years. And then they will start competing, organizing the same activities, the same occasion, the same activity. And then you want the community to support yours rather than the other side. It's very sad, but I think it's very true, not only of secular or non-sectarian associations, but even in the church. I can give you many examples of the same thing happening in the church. So what's happening there? Meron naman tayong bayanihan core value. We have this spirit of bayanihan in our culture. But how come this idea of kinship, community can become so parochial? It can become so limiting. That's something that really challenges us. Mutual aid. If we want to help others, we're very good with one-time dole-outs. Christmas time or some special occasion like the local fiesta or your birth anniversary or Easter, to give help to others during special occasions, elections especially, that's there. But can we do something that is sustainable and impactful? I think that's a challenge to Bayanihan, to look beyond one-time activities and to work towards things that are more sustainable and impactful. Maybe this will become clearer in the next slide. Because when we talk about future directions, I think we need to ask, where do we need more Bayanihan? Where do we need more Bayanihan? And here I'd like to offer a few examples. Right now, during the pandemic, we need more Bayanihan in public health. It is no secret that the Philippine response to the pandemic has not been ideal. We have vaccinations, yes, but 1.5 years after the first surge, we still don't have contact tracing. Every city has its own contact tracing. There is no national system to trace. When somebody gets infected, who was this person exposed to? You get them isolated, etc. It's like to each his own. And I think that's one big reason why there is a surge. There's this new variants. We're in more and more lockdowns now. And to top it all off, even if the vaccines have already arrived, the rollout is not yet ideal. And you have Filipinos who don't want to be vaccinated. Do you have a role there as Filipinos based abroad? If you are in touch with your relatives, your friends in the Philippines who are not yet vaccinated, I hope that is something you can contribute, to encourage them to avail of whatever vaccine is available. Because I think it's true that those who are getting sick, getting confined, many of them are not vaccinated. And this is really very, very urgent. We need to come together really to do things together, to cooperate, to collaborate, to address public health concerns. It's very sad when in the news we see examples of, let's say, a family. They were caught in Pasig, a group of 40 people. At the height of the ECQ, they were having a birthday party. What is their excuse? Oh, we are all vaccinated already. So just because they are vaccinated, they think they can already have a party, no more distancing. So to observe those basic protocols of wearing the mask, distancing, we are tired of it. We are all tired of it, but we have to continue doing it, to observe public health protocols. I hope this is something that you also consider. How can you help in this area? Number 2, maybe a sensitive topic, but politics. We have elections next year. Don't worry, I'm not going to campaign for anyone. But if you look at the politics in the Philippines, it's very emotional. It's very personality oriented. If you go to a campaign rally, you expect to be entertained. The popular candidates are those who can sing and dance and connect with the audience, talk those who are good at giving speeches, connecting with the audience. So whether they are good leaders, whether they are qualified to govern or to make laws in the Senate, parang that's not important. No, the important thing is popularity, charisma. No? And that is one of the sad realities of Philippine politics. Thankfully, in recent years, we are seeing a little change, at least in local politics, no? Where you have young leaders coming up who are not necessarily just entertainers or there to take pictures of themselves and promote themselves. No? But politics, I say, is where we need bayanihan, where we need to be so concerned about our country that we really get together to do what is right and what is helpful beyond our personal concerns. No? As we grow older, parang we've always known the Philippines is a poor country. Do we want to die with the Philippines still being a poor country? No? When will we see some long and lasting change? I put here OFW vote because, again, when I lived abroad, I realized there are 10 million Filipinos abroad. 10 million. But it seems that the number who are dual citizens is not that big. The number who are registered voters, it is happening thanks to the COMELEC and the embassies, but the numbers are not that big, maybe. That's just my impression. No? But with 10 million Filipinos abroad, if you can just be organized, if you can advocate for Filipinos to continue being concerned and to really express their political will, even if they're abroad, what a great force you would be. No? You who are exposed to, let's say, Singapore-style governance. No? What can we learn from there that you can advocate for in the Philippines? Very often, the OFWs are talked about as the bagong bayani because you have sacrificed so much to work abroad and then to support your families back home, to send money back home. But I feel that is the context when they talk about you OFWs as bagong bayani. Mga bayani kayo. You are heroes because you are living in exile, as it were, and then sending help home. Pero is that all? Is that all that OFWs contribute? When you send money home, it's to help your families and then your local communities. But what about the nation? What can the OFWs as a group? No? How can you practice bayanihan to help our country? And again, not just to give dole-outs on special occasions, but to work towards change that will last for better governance, better economic systems, equal opportunities for all, etc. Next, this is very important. Again, just like mental health, something very much in line with the 21st century, digital citizenship. We live so much of our lives now online, especially I think OFWs, because you need to keep in touch with your families back home. No, you are on FaceTime, you're on Messenger, all these different apps to stay connected. No? And now we also get all our news, all our knowledge online. And just because it's online, we think it's all true. There's so much information. All the information is out there online. But we need education in critical thinking. No? Why? Because fake news is a problem. No? That is one of the biggest insights that we promote in education. Just because it's in the internet doesn't mean it's true. It's so easy to publish something now on a website or on Facebook or on whatever social media platform. It doesn't mean it's true. You need to be able to think critically to filter what is true and what is false. Sometimes we cannot even agree on the facts, on what really happened. Because of social media, people can promote their vision or their version of events, even if it's not true. Trolls. This has been proven already that the politicians are using armies of trolls to fight those who disagree with them. What's wrong with disagreeing? We live in a democracy. It's okay to express your opinion. There was a time we could respect each other, even if we have different political opinions. You just respect the other. You dialogue. You listen. You can have a decent conversation about it. But now it's so polarized. If you disagree, then you are labeled, you are assigned a color, and then there is no dialogue anymore. No? So this is a very big problem. So a big need really is digital citizenship. Yes, we live much of our lives online, but we need critical thinking, no? To be science and evidence-based, to base our judgments not on what other people say, not on what you saw online, but what does the science say? What does the evidence suggest? A commitment to truth and justice. And that is true for all, not just for students in our schools, but for all of us. I hope we can see more of that. And why is this Bayanihan? Because we all have a role to play. No? If you are adults and you have influence over young people, over your families, as OFWs, you have a big influence on your families because you're the one sending the help. Let's be honest. They will listen to you because you are the provider. No? So you have a role to play in educating, in changing mindsets, promoting public health, influence the politics, promoting digital citizenship. No? So I'm assigning this role of Bayanihan in key areas to our OFWs. No? These are all areas where you can do so much because your influence is very great. As I mentioned earlier already, mental health support. I looked up last year's Bayanihan Lecture by Ambassador Mindy Cruz, and she also emphasized that. It's a hidden crisis. It's happening behind the scenes, but very urgent. How can we provide mental health support? And you begin with your own community, because I think it's also a great need among OFWs. Those who are in distress, who are having problems in their employment, in their household. Who do they turn to? Sometimes they just need a listening ear. Otherwise, they may think of harming themselves. They may fall into depression, and it's very sad. No? Can we practice Bayanihan in this area? Finally, the environment. No? In many of the sessions I participate in these days, there's the insight that for the last 15, 20 years, we have been told that we have to take care of our common home, as Pope Francis calls it. We have to take care of our environment for the sake of future generations. And yet it doesn't seem to inspire us enough into concrete action. We know it's important, it's there, no? But what will we do about it? No? So for example, in many places, there is a campaign to use less plastic. No, in school, we are trying to do that. No more, we don't serve any more bottled water, generating so much plastic waste. No, we use paper materials for storing food. Even the utensils now are made of starch rather than plastic. But many of these good practices have been set aside because of the pandemic, because we want more, hygiene or convenience. So much food is delivered in disposable plastic or styrofoam, and then this is not disposed of properly. Many environmental programs, practices have been set aside for the sake of convenience during the pandemic. But we need Bayanihan. We need to work together to address the challenges brought upon us by the environment. We are experiencing the effects already. Dati, in the past, when you say typhoon season, you can predict when the typhoon is going to come. No? But even before the pandemic, there was no pattern anymore. No? The typhoon can come even in November, even in December. No? So floods, so much flooding in recent years. No? What are we doing to protect the forests, to plant trees, so that we will have a livable environment into the future? So in this talk, I have tried to, process the idea of Bayanihan, give you some examples from the last year and a half, some good projects that have happened in the Philippines. And then I've tried to offer some challenges and some future directions where we need the spirit of Bayanihan for our beloved country. No? In conclusion, I just want to say that the spirit of Bayanihan serves us very well during times of crisis. No? We're very good at that. That's something to celebrate. But it could be so much more. May Bayanihan be sustained in our day-to-day encounters, with or without photo ops. Kasi minsan ganun selfie kagad, no? Take a picture, but you're not living in the moment, no? When there are people in need and we need to help, and we need to just do it, no? Even if there is no publicity, no picture to post on Facebook or other social media platforms. Sustain it in our day-to-day encounters. May Bayanihan extend to deeper social problems like the quality of our politics, the impact of social media, and environmental concerns. So not only during times of crisis, of disasters, of pandemic-related issues, but the Bayanihan spirit, as I said, for it to keep expanding so that we see ourselves as part of the bigger whole, one Philippine nation, or as part of your country of residence if you're working abroad, and to be so concerned about that you are willing to volunteer, to participate in programs that help the common good. So I'd like to end there, and I look forward to hearing your comments or even entertaining some of your questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Ari, for that eloquent and very passionate presentation of what the Bayanihan spirit is and the evolution that is now undergoing in the current form and in the current pandemic situation that we are facing, as well as the challenges that you have mentioned. So there are some things for thought. I think it's worthwhile having some minutes, I think, on how we can digest and absorb all those challenges and things that you have mentioned in your presentation. Wonderful, so very inspiring. I do wish to invite all our viewers and attendees to send in their questions. For those in the Zoom chat, please use please use our chat room. And for those in Facebook, please send your questions on the comment section and we will read them out. For those in the Zoom, if you wish to say your question in person, please raise your hand and we will call your name. Or otherwise, just type in your questions and we will read them out for you. Before we proceed to the panel discussion for the Q&A session, we will have a short break with messages from our Bayanihan Lecture sponsor, PNB Singapore, with their Alliance PNB Life Insurance team. May I invite to the floor Ms. Carol Bernas, National Sales Head for Bancassurance, Alliance PNB Life Insurance, Inc. Ms. Carol, please.
Hello everyone. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat, sa mga kababayan po natin na nasa Singapore, and of course sa mga participants na nasa Manila like me. Hello po. But before anything else, we of course we want to thank PBSS organizers and authors, our partner PNB Singapore, for inviting us in this Bayanihan event. So napaka-importante po sa atin na magkaroon ng chance na magkamustahan, lalo na po sa sitwasyon natin ngayon. Alam natin na mas masarap yung feeling na magkamustahan face-to-face sana. But for now, this is the best that we can do. So at least kahit virtual lang and despite the distance, ay magkakasama-sama pa rin tayo. And I hope lahat po tayo ay malayo sa sakit. At syempre masaya, yun po importante, bawal po ang nakasimangot. Because sabi nga nila, smile is the best medicine in the world and the most inexpensive medicine or inexpensive gift that we can give to anyone. So keep smiling. Alam ko mahirap gawin, especially in our situation, right? Pero kailangan po natin maging masaya, and of course to always smile. Dahil po, in the next slide, makikita natin that COVID is still here. Next slide, please. All right. So meron pa rin pong COVID, no? In fact, cases are still rising. Probably not in Singapore. No, sa Singapore po, based on reports, nasa less than 70,000 cases lang, no? Ang COVID cases, no, out of the 5.9 million current population. That's only 1% of the total population ang nagka-COVID. But here in the Philippines, no, confirmed cases po has reached to almost 2 million, no, 1.9 million na po ang COVID cases dito sa Pilipinas out of the 111 million, no, total population. That's almost 2% na po ng total population ang nagka-COVID or ang may COVID. So just yesterday, we had an all-time high, no, record of new cases. Umabot po ng 19,441 cases po in just one day. Yun po ang pinakamataas, no, na naitalang kaso since the start of pandemic. So everyone is really affected by COVID. So sabi nga nila, it levels the world, no? Walang mayaman or walang mahirap na bansa. Totoo po yun, no? But due to the rising cases and the slow vaccination program in the country, this was mentioned by Father Ari kanina, so mas malaki po ang pangamba, no, ng pamilya natin na naiwan dito sa Pilipinas. And I'm sure you will agree with me, no, na malaki po ang need natin, no, ang pangangailangan ng mga Pilipino pagdating po or pagbigla po tayong nagkasakit. Sadly, our healthcare system, no, here in the Philippines, even before COVID, not enough to cover all the expenses of hospital laboratories. So what more with this pandemic, ang dami pong nagkakasakit, no? Even those employees na may HMO could not even 100% of the total bills. So any excess po, the family will have to shoulder. At yun ang mahirap, no? Yun yung matagal na pinaghirapan or pinag-ipunan, mapupunta lang po sa hospital bills. Now, ang tanong po ito, paano po natin pinaghahandaan? If one day, no, we're one of these cases, of course, we don't want that to happen, but we also need to have an open mind that, you know, it could happen to anyone. Kaya po ang tanong, prepared po ba tayo? So mainam nang maging handa, no? In the first place, the reason why we are in Singapore working away from our family is to provide the better life, no, to our loved ones. Pero aminin din natin na kahit na gaano kalaki or malaki ang ipon natin, mababaliwala po yon pag may isang nagkasakit sa pamilya. So next slide po, ito po yung dapat natin gawin, no? Aside from your financial protection, when we say financial protection, we're referring to our usual savings, no? Life insurance, meron tayong excess, meron din po tayong investment, no? Let's also protect, most especially our health, no? Samahan natin ng health protection ang ipon natin. And syempre po, to top it all, samahan natin ng maraming dasal. Yun po yung pinaka-importante doon. So next slide po, Alliance PNB Life can give you the most comprehensive health plan, no, that anybody could ever have. So presenting to you our Alliance Well, no, this is our health plan that provides the most needed and the most valued benefits, no, like kalagay po dito sa screen natin, we have inpatient and daycare treatments, emergency benefits, medical evacuation and repatriation. Of course, may outpatient treatment din po tayo, and additional benefits. Ito po yung personal favorite ko, no, yung wellness services. And of course, yung telehealth services, ito po yung isa sa pinakagamit na gamit, especially right now, no? We don't need to go out para lang at least makapag-consult. We can do teleconsult, no, sa mga bahay po natin. So ito po yung pwedeng i-provide, no, ng Alliance Well. And of course, we have an access for expert medical opinion. And in the next slide po, meron din po tayo, no, ito yung mga sample coverage natin for inpatient, no, ay yung mga hospitalization costs. Hindi ko na po isa-isahin. These are all the necessary or yung mga costs related to the inpatient, lahat po yan ay covered ni Allianz Well. And of course, in the next slide, aside from this cost, no, from this hospitalization cost, we also have 15% off 15% no, of the total premium as family discount because we want to cover the whole family. So magbibigay po tayo ng additional 15% discount. And on the next slide, so meron po sa screen and of course dito po sa background ko para po sa kabuuang detalye kung paano natin matutulungan protektahan no, ang kalusugan ng ating mga mahal sa buhay at of course mapaghandaan po natin ang ating kinabukasan. So in closing po, maraming salamat po ulit sa pagkakataon at sana po magkita-kita tayo ulit no, and hopefully next time po face-to-face na. So mag-ingat po tayong lahat at tandaan po natin, ito po ang take-away ko sa inyong lahat. Ang kalusugan po, ang pinakayaman na pwede natin ibigay sa ating mga pamilya. So be well with Allianz Well. So God bless po sa inyong lahat and stay safe. Those who call on Miss Christy Vicentina, our region head for Asia and Oceania Philippine National Bank, to explain po our OBPS. Miss Christy.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. And it was nice to meet you, albeit virtually. If I may echo Father Ari's reminder, this is the best time to take care of our family and community back home. But we can only start caring for others if we have secured our family. And the best time to buy that security or insurance for them was 5 years ago. However, if you miss buying that insurance 5 years ago, the next best time to take action is today. PNB, together with our Allianz PNB Life Insurance team, is here to help you, help your family by providing that needed security or insurance that covers COVID-19. So si PNB Allianz po can provide that coverage for your loved ones in the Philippines for COVID-19. If you have been in Singapore for a while, you have experienced how good life here in Singapore, because if you get infected, there's utmost support that we can get from the Singapore government. But in the Philippines, it's a different story. So allow us, PNB, together with our Allianz PNB Life Insurance, to provide that security for your family back home. And PNB, through our overseas bills payment facility, allows you to pay your Allianz premium while you are overseas. And that is not only in Singapore, that is also applicable where if ever you are in Hong Kong. Dun po sa mga viewers natin, those who are in Hong Kong, Japan, New York, LA, UK, Guam, and Canada, wherever you are, PNB is always there to help you deliver your banking and remittance needs. So maraming salamat po at mabuhay mula sa bangkong maasahan nyo kahit saan at kahit kailan. At sana po magkita-kita tayo sa susunod na pagkakataon na hindi na virtual yung lecture. So maraming salamat and congratulations again to PBSS led by Attorney Ranbir Kumar Singh and Philippine Embassy Singapore led by His Excellency Ambassador Joseph Del Mar Yap. In Singapore, a PNB is located at Lucky Plaza Shopping Center. We are located at Unit 0302 and we have another office at Jurong at the back of CPF building. You can also call us at 6737-4646 extension 111 or visit our website at www.pnb.com.ph/Singapore. Maraming salamat ulit and magkita-kita tayo dito sa Lucky Plaza or sa Jurong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minnie, you're on mute.
You're mute, Minnie.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Carol and Miss Christy, our sponsor, PNP Singapore with their Alliance PNP Life Insurance team. Thank you for that. Please note, may bangko po at may assurance tayo. So, wag pong pabayaan ng health natin. So, thank you so much. And now, let's proceed to our panel discussion, Q&A session. Again, I would like to invite all our viewers and attendees to send in their questions in the Zoom chat or comments in the Facebook Live streaming of our Bayanihan Lecture. May I now invite Father Ari, together with Ambassador Joseph Del Maria and Attorney Ranveer Kumar Singh, and as well as Ms. Nina Lynn Sulit Kakananta, who is the treasurer of Philippine Chamber of Commerce Singapore. So they are all joining us in this Q&A session and panel discussion of the Bayanihan spirit in COVID times. Is Miss Nina in?
Yes. Yes, I'm
Nina.
here po.
Oh, okay, thank you. Now I say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Father Ari, thank you so much for that wonderful and very eloquent presentation and challenges we face now and the evolving format of Bayanihan. Before we proceed asking your question, I would actually like to ask Ambassador Joseph about his own experiences in the Singapore setting on how the Bayanihan spirit is being seen, visible, or at least how the spirit is alive in the Filipino community here in Singapore. Ambassador Joseph, if you don't mind, please take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank Father Ari for that really very inspiring and very thought-provoking talk. I think it really should get all of us, the Filipino community, but actually everybody in general to think about, because after all, I think Bayanihan spirit naman, while we look on it as a core Filipino value, but of course, it is something that probably other countries, other communities also have or should have. No? So thank you again. As I said, you really have given us a lot of food for thought. Here in Singapore, I think when I first came, I in 2018 as ambassador, I've already noticed that the Filipino community here in Singapore is actually quite well organized and really has a lot of Bayanihan spirit in terms of whenever there's really something that happens in the Philippines, they really are the community leaders really take it upon themselves to organize. It's not something that the embassy has to necessarily go out and get everybody together to do it. I mean, the community itself does it, and the embassy really just plays a supporting role in terms of making sure that the donations are sent to the Philippines, or trying to find ways of making sure that the donations arrive quickly and without having to pay customs duties or stuff like that, because that's always been a strange thing in the countries that when we get donations, it's actually might still be subjected to custom duties and taxes and so on. So it's something that still needs to be worked out to make sure that the help arrives in the Philippines promptly and is received by the beneficiaries that they were intended for. So that's definitely something that I noticed here. The other thing I also noticed in the fact that since I'm not a career diplomat, I didn't know much about until I became ambassador, was this, as you mentioned, Father Ari, the assistance to nationals. Assistance to national is a core mission of any Philippine embassy in the world. And that is something that came, I think, only in the last maybe 10, 15 years. and if I'm not mistaken, triggered primarily because of the floor contemplation case. So in that sense, that tragedy has resulted in a major change in the way that the Philippine government responds to the Filipino community, the OFWs outside of the Philippines. So for me, that ATN function is a major and very, very important function of the embassy. And there is an officer that's dedicated to that function with a team of several staff, depending on where it's located. And their job really is just to assist Filipinos who get into trouble, who are in distress, who need assistance, who need medical assistance, who have been arrested for crimes. Or here in Singapore, we're not as concerned with undocumented workers because the rules and laws of Singapore are very clear, very strict, and it's very difficult to be undocumented here in Singapore. But other cases like criminal cases or as victims themselves, because there are also cases where they're the victims of verbal or physical abuse by their employers. Although this may be limited in numbers, but still we do get some of those cases from time to time. So that is a function of the embassy that we take very seriously, and that we are always very, we always announce in all of our PhilCom meetings that for any of our OFWs who need assistance, they should not hesitate to contact the Philippine Embassy, and we will do our utmost to assist them in any way that we can. So for me, those are just the thoughts that I wanted to put in from the ideas that Father Ari brought up during his talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Joseph. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed, I think the Philippine Embassy has been very actively involved in attending to the needs of the Filipino workers in Singapore, which can be our domestic helpers, or what they call now migrant domestic workers, as well as those what we say professionals or working people in offices and in other manufacturing plants. So there's a big population of Filipino workers in Singapore, and Philippine Embassy is doing a very good job, I must say. Can I now call on Attorney Xavier? He's our president, honorary president of our Bayanihan Society. He's been the president. He's not a Filipino, but he's got a Filipino heart. Yes. And he's been our honorary president for at least 6-7 years, I think, since I joined Bayanihan. Could you let us know how the Bayanihan Society has also sort of contributed to the Bayanihan spirit in Singapore, just so we can share with everyone how we are doing, especially during these times?
Right, thank you, Minnie. Well, the Bayanihan Society actually is a result of the floor contemplation case, which Ambassador Yap has just brought up. So prior to our setting up of the Bayanihan Society, or the embassy rather setting it up, there was no sort of one place where Filipinos could go to during their free time, so they were left to find their own places to go and all that. And sometimes it led to problems for themselves. So after the floor contemplation case, the two governments decided to set up a place where Filipinos could meet safely and partake in activities which will be useful for themselves. So this idea of Bayanihan Center came about. Now, insofar as the Bayanihan spirit is concerned, of course, the Bayanihan Center has always been, the main objectives is really to do community service, right? Whatever the community will need. And in Singapore, if you look at the general Singapore society, Singapore is made up of so many different races and religions. So they all have their own way of doing Bayanihan. For example, the Malays, they call it Gotong Royong. Again, it's a self-help kind of program, And then you have the Chinese community, they have their own kind of Gotong Royong or Bayanihan. And then you have the Indian community who have their own ways of doing it. So many of them use places of worship as a starting point. And then they have other places of non-worship also, which continues to help that. So different levels of self-help going on. And as far as the government is concerned, the government has set up, as you will know, those of you who have been here for some time, they have different groups called for example, MUIS, and then they have CDA, they have SINDA. These are helping different groups of people, sometimes based on the essentially racial sort of base of self-help group, so that at least the way of doing Bayanihan may be more effective, from the government's point of view. So that's at one level of doing it. Of course, in Philippines, it's a much more bigger and diverse country, which many different issues. They have a rural sector plus urban sector. So the issues faced in Singapore will be quite different from Philippines, except for perhaps in the urban areas where some of the issues may be quite similar to the Philippines. I have noticed personally that the Bayanihan spirit, as we grow urbanized, more and more urbanized, the Bayanihan spirit seems to be weakening, or rather becoming more challenging to get volunteers to continue with that Bayanihan spirit, to continue on a longer term and sustainable basis. Because people find that life is too stressful, we've got a lot of things to do, and therefore the volunteering spirit takes a little bit of a dip. Unless there's a situation like COVID-19, then you see a resurgence of. So the human spirit or Bayanihan is still there, but on a normal occasion, there may be less involvement. When it comes to real major situations like COVID-19, then people have come up and help out in many, many ways. So the example which Father Ari gave in Philippines, he struck a sort of a chord here. The example he gave about community pantries. For that lady who started a community pantry, and now there are more than 6,000 or so in the Philippines. I read about a similar community pantry in Singapore, for a family who had set up a stall outside their HDB flat. And it had the same principle. They just put goodies there and you just take whatever you like. So some people take more than they need, but most of the time, there's still a lot available for the others as well. So there are some similarities in terms of needs of people in times like this, and there are some similarities in terms of the responses. But I wanted to find out from Father Ari in terms of getting people to volunteer as volunteers for community service in an urbanized society. Whether Father Ari can share some thoughts about how we can be more effective in trying to get volunteers on a more sustainable basis.
Yeah, thank you for that, Attorney Ranveer. What comes to mind is really the relational aspect. Because if we do a call for volunteers and expect people to just walk in and volunteer, you get very few. But if you tap what we now call on social media influencers, people who have many friends, people who make it a cool thing to volunteer, and then they invite their friends and they go as a group, especially among young people, that works very well. If there's one who's very interested and he or she brings along his or her friends, then that can really expand exponentially, So that kind of thing, and then maybe to be active and present on social media. I mentioned the trolls, and I've been suggesting this in various fora where I just suggest the idea: what is the equivalent of the trolls? If you have people who are spreading fake news or spreading hate and all that sort of thing, shouldn't we also have the counterpart, the virtuous, not trolls, but virtuous people who are spreading good things, inviting people to work together? That's how the community pantries inspired others to do the same. So that's maybe those two things. Focus on the relational aspect, how people can bring in other people, and then to consider how that might be done on social media, because that seems to be the milieu now of people. everything's happening online.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's very interesting. Yes, we have to look for that influencer that will be able to help us. And I think we have one person here, Miss Nina of Philippine Chamber of Commerce. Can you be that influencer? And can you just talk about your Chamber of Commerce, please?
Yeah, thank you for the sharing, Father Ari. I have a lot of writings on my notes that I have to, like, being in an education sector and representing Philippine Chambers of Commerce in Singapore. I mean, it's a new organization, and I believe all of those who are members currently now are quite thinking what to do. And now their hearts, their Bayanihan hearts, are already planning ahead of what we can do, not just for the Filipinos in Singapore, but back in the country. Basically, Philippine Chambers of Commerce is a new organization that is what we say collaboration of businesses in Singapore that will help elevate the business, the entrepreneurs, and promote entrepreneurship here. Because we have a lot. I mean, I have seen a lot of people. I've been to a lot of Filipino entrepreneur groups, but that are all informal. Now, thank you to our ambassador, Joseph Del Maria, for heading up and initiating this kind of group. We are very much privileged, especially me as a new business person here in Singapore, having this kind of community that will help one another, not just the current business person, but those who are aspiring to be business person. So what I can share as well on the topic that Father Ari has shared is more on the as a founder and managing director of HFS. I mean, a school here in Singapore. I have that kind of obligation to educate the youth on the future direction that the 5 future direction that Father Ari has mentioned. So we have, as a leader as well as myself, to the small community that I'm entrusted with, I have that kind of, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to educate, especially our children. There are small ones, but to be able to know what's happening, not just in Singapore, but back in the Philippines. So they can also, when they grow up to becoming us, they are going through the roots and, helping them, even in the little way, while they are still here in Singapore. So yeah, thank you for the very fruitful sharing that you have given to us.
Thank you, Ms. Nina, and nice to have you here. Yes, and Father Ari, yes, indeed, there were quite a few, not many actually, not just few items that you mentioned, and I also like to write notes, so I do have a few pages of notes, not necessarily questions. But what struck me, one of the things that struck me was mental health, was about mental health, and you mentioned that when you had that program and you said that there were so many children that signed up. I was impressed because many people don't recognize that they need help when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of denial, like, no, I don't have the problem, or so I was really impressed when you said there were many who joined. And actually, like in Singapore, it's not really talk about so openly, although recently the government is talking about it, especially when we had the recent incident in one of the schools here. So it's now it's something that's openly talked about, but not. There's still a lot of how would I say? There's still a lot of I think there's still some. We still need a lot of acceptance, basically, from different sectors of the country, different types of people, and all that. Because so just back to Bayanihan. So helping those with mental health. And for people like us, we're not even sure how we can address it. Any suggestion how we can help if we think that somebody might need help, or maybe I need help because I'm the one having it. But any clues to any suggestion or clues to how we can go about it?
Thank you for that. First is to maybe do a scan of what help is available in your place, whether in person or online. In fact, if it's online, it doesn't have to be Singapore-based or Manila-based, right? If it's an online service, then scan what's available and then create awareness about that. Because what we learned in our school is that, of course, we have guidance counselors. There are people in school they can reach out to. But for young people, they usually want to talk to somebody they don't know, somebody who will not a safe space where they are assured that they will be listened to, not judged, not condemned. No, so create those, find out what's available and make them available, and then advocate what you mentioned. No, that it's out there, people are in denial, but you can do messaging, because the first step is to remove the stigma that there's something wrong if you're looking for help. That if you want to talk to somebody, you know, people think it's all about suicide. It's a big concern, suicide, but it's not. That's already like the extreme, one end of the pole, right? But it's the whole range is there. Sometimes people have so much anxiety that they cannot function. They're worrying so much, and then they have no one to talk to. A lot of the time, they just really need somebody to talk to. And depending on your home circumstances, you can be very isolated. If there's nobody at home that you can really pour your heart out to, then that builds up in your interior self, and that's very stressful, and that can lead to many other things. It will come out in your physiology already. You'll start getting sick and that sort of thing. No, so advocate to remove the stigma, and then find out what's available, and also make that information widely known.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm waiting for questions from our from our viewers and attendees. Hopefully, please don't hesitate to ask any question. Father, also another question was about helping the schools. You've got ERDA who's helping out the sort of serving students who may not be able to go to school. Some alumni groups here have that program as well, but your ERDA, is there any group of students you're targeting, or is that an area or region that you are helping out? Also, Miss Marian Knight sent a question about she asked whether, she said, Father, thank you, Father Ari, for your talk. That's a call to action. Mindful that our effort to help is not just a dole out, but may I know some of the wish list of school supplies, masks that perhaps we can send from Singapore in a balikbayan box to a particular school beneficiary. Thank you. So that's sort of related question.
Yeah, thank you for that, and gives me more time to talk about ERDA. ERDA, you know, we used to be trying to help in so many places, but after some strategic planning, we decided to focus on 4 areas in the country who have the lowest literacy rate. So we want to improve the literacy rate in places where it is very low. So that would be Metro Manila, Panay, South Cotabato, 2 areas in Metro Manila. No. So school supplies are always rolled out in the beginning of the school year in September, just to set them up for the coming school year. That is always a need, no? Because if you're a young person, especially in your in grade school, you know, you like it. You like receiving a nice notebook, a pen, a pencil, and a nice envelope. You know, if you think back to your own primary years, that's part of the experience to get you excited about studying, right? So that is always there. Maybe during the pandemic, the masks will be useful, because we all know we have to wear masks. But you know, for the poor, they're always using cloth masks or recycling the mask, and then it's not effective anymore. So that's a need also for the foreseeable future. You know? So I had already talked about the various kinds of social support needed. Maybe one new thing I can add here is that the advocacy of ERDA also for technical vocational education. We have another branch of ERDA that focuses on that. Now, to advocate the idea that not everybody needs to go to university. I think in Singapore, this is very strong. In many other countries, that a certain number of high school graduates will qualify to go to university, but the others can go to trade school, can learn a skill, you know, some very, you know, this can be high skills, technical skills like electromagnetics, computers. You can get certified for that and get employed much faster than if you had to invest in a university degree and then pay back that money before you start earning. And this is a very big need in the Philippines. There is, in fact, demand for skilled labor, but not enough supply. You'd be surprised if you look at the data. We have very high unemployment, no? But because they're not qualified, they go to some college to get a degree para masabi lang may nakatapos. We have, that's a core value of Filipinos. Because of our history, they value a college degree, a university degree, but they don't mind that they end up without a job or doing something that's totally unrelated to what they studied. So bridging that gap is also part of the advocacy of ERDA. So we are promoting that technical vocational track in senior high school, advocating that idea that, don't think that college or university is the only way for you to, advance in society. You can learn a skill and you will be in very high demand here and abroad.
Yes, that is true. I think in Singapore, the Singapore government, and I'm sure Attorney Xavier would confirm this, has put a lot of resources to education. And then education is split into university level, as well as polytechnic and what we call A levels. Then we've got the vocational, the ITEs, the Institute of Technical Education. And some of the graduates of ITEs would then further pursue achieving a bachelor's degree or even master's sometimes. So it doesn't mean that when you go to a technical school, you're not good enough. It's just your skills are different. But so it's I thinking it's my just personal opinion, but there's again a kind of a stigma again. If you did not finish education, you're not good enough. So things are changing, and some of our great IT billionaires are not really graduates. They are dropouts. So I know, Attorney Xavier, would you be able to say some adds to that one?
Yes. Yes, we do have, as what Minnie mentioned, technical education, which has been quite strongly grounded, and that's in the form of Institute of Technical Education. So students there who are not so-called perhaps academically inclined, but technically inclined, they do go into those kind of institutions and they learn a whole range of courses. They become good at it. And some of them who want to pursue subsequently with further academic qualifications, they then move on to the polytechnic where they can get a diploma. And some of them even go further to the universities to get a degree. And there are many cases of students who have gone through that route. It takes a longer route, but they've gone through that route. The benefit of the technical education, as Father Ari pointed out, is obviously that they will have learned a skill, a trade, and which they can put to use quite immediately, and then start doing something very, very constructive and useful. So, of course, when we first started out, it was not that easy because there's always this, perhaps, a gap that one has to, maybe stigma or gap that you have to sort of cross. Where academically inclined or academics were more favored with technical education. But over time, people have realized that technical education will be very useful. It pays very well as well. And there's a lot of scope for further development. So over time, it took us some time before the level of acceptance became much wider and bigger, and people do now go. And we have actually quite a number of huge ITEs, so much so that our system has been quite successful. Other countries have been trying to learn from us as well, and we've given assistance to some other countries as well. And this is something perhaps, an area where something can be done between ERDA and the ITEs as well. And maybe the Bayanihan can help in some ways. I'm not sure, but certainly if we can help, I'm sure we'll be able to help. But they are very well equipped and very well resourced, the ITEs.
Thank you. Yes, well, Bayanihan, we have courses like what Father Ari mentioned, like those in Hong Kong. So we've got our courses in cooking and sewing and other skills that our kababayans can bring home and do something else, become entrepreneur as well in their own way with their own skills. I'm sure Miss Nina also has that kind of. She's a teacher, like so she would. And any additional comment from you, Miss Nina?
Actually, knowing that Father Ari went to one of accounting firms, I can resonate because I'm an accountant by profession. I'm an accountant, so I'm technically not a teacher, but more of the school administrator. So I'm more on focus on the operation side of the school. So basically, on our part, these are all opportunities that I would again say collaboration. I think that would be Bayanihan spirit towards better education for the Filipino people. So not just for what you say technical, but all encompasses everything like what Miss Father Ari would have said on the politics, digital citizenship, on mental health, environment and then public health as well. So these are all the things that, especially nowadays that social media has very big influence. So we can, I for myself, I have my Facebook account to be something that I pledge to be a positive influence to the community that I have. I mean, that as much as I can reach to, I send on a daily prayer, daily reflection. So that's something I think as leaders, I mean, even as entrepreneur, I would have say that we have to stand up and, spread this kind of positivity in social media and the internet. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. And yes, I totally agree. Just all good news on social media would be really a nice way of helping everyone. So we don't, it's like make peace, not war. Father, there's a question on Zoom, but I think you've answered it. I'll just read it out. But from from Rams Morales. Sorry, I'm not sure whether it's a male or female, but question is, in some places where you don't see many young people, like in a countryside of Australia, or even Japan, or even Singapore soon, majority of people living there are older ones. How would you apply this Bayanihan spirit to people who are isolated or vulnerable? If you'd just like to say your response.
Yeah, maybe also to add to it, I was saying that, we all crave human interaction. Even if people say they value their privacy so much, if you're alone all the time, you crave some human connection. Maybe not to spend hours and hours with strangers, but to have that connection. And I think there are some groups doing that, especially with the recognition that in many places we have an aging population, right? So many people, old people living alone or in rural areas. So how can you connect with them, whether online or in person, through visits, when you mark special festivals, certain points in the year, to make them feel that people know who they are, remember them, send them some tokens, whatever facilitates that kind of human connection. I think it's very well appreciated.
Thank you for that. Yes, in many societies, I mean, Singapore is one where the government is already getting worried about the aging population. Fewer and fewer babies are born, so that's a big issue in Singapore. And I mean, not in other countries. Philippines has a very young population, which is a very big advantage. Young and skilled citizens in the Philippines, so that's a very big advantage that the country has. So yes, and I'd just like to say for those who are watching, our Bayanihan building is just behind us. It's in our backdrop for those, and that's at Pasir Panjang Road. So it's currently closed. I think it's only open for a few days in a week because of our COVID restrictions. So yeah, anyone who would like to ask a question on our Zoom chat, because people are, anyone who would like to ask a question? Father, just maybe, if not, just last one question. For education though, is there, I'm talking about Xavier School, is there a scholarship program that you have that you can offer to students?
Yes. In our New Valley campus, especially, we recruit students who are graduates of public elementary schools, and if they pass our admissions program exams, they stay with us for high school for 6 years. So that's a very big financial commitment. We take in 25 a year. So any help towards that would be appreciated. But something very exciting also is that next year we will open what I would describe now, the Technical Vocational Senior High School. It will also be a full scholarship, and we will recruit from public junior high schools. So to come to us for TechVoc Senior High School, 2-year program. Again, that requires a lot of funding. So any help towards that would be great. No, I mean that's one very concrete way of this Bayanihan spirit. Now, I think many individuals and groups do that. When you sponsor a number of students, see them through school, and like I said in the talk, no, and when you see them becoming something after that, it's really such a rewarding experience, no? Because when you help one young person, you help the whole family, really. You know, we've seen that so much in ERDA. You help one young person to get a good education, start working, and you lift up the whole family. In no time at all, they've moved out of the slums, because the ERDA kids really live in the slums, literally. And you can lift them out of that with good education and with one member of the family gainfully employed. So it's very inspiring. So we need to multiply that many, many times over.
Yes, indeed. Education, as they say, is the great equalizer. So yes. Any last comment from Ambassador Joseph here before we? And then I will ask Attorney Ranvir one last short comment, and also Ms. Nina one last short comment before we close this final discussion.
Okay, thank you, Minnie. I have one last comment, which is the challenge that Father brought up, which is the political participation. I think this is a good segue for me to make an advertisement. The Philippine Embassy we are finishing already the voters registration for next year's election. The last day to register is September 30. So that's already this coming month. And we're open every Saturday and Sunday on top of our regular days. But on Saturday and Sunday, we're open for voters registration. So I really encourage all the people who are viewing who have not yet registered to vote for next year to vote, so that you can really have an input on who our leaders will be. You really cannot have the luxury of blaming somebody or the government not working properly if you did not exercise your vote to choose who our leaders will be. So please register and vote next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Joseph. Yeah, yes, please register and have a part of selecting the leaders of the future. Now, Attorney Ranvir, please, your last comment.
Yeah, I think that COVID-19, I think we all can see, has shown how important it is for the community to be working together in harmony to support all people who need all kinds of help. And that actually strengthens the social bonding and social capital, which is so necessary in today's times. As we can see in the world, we see sometimes those which are not so good, which are, societies are breaking apart, fractures. In the latest, of course, Afghanistan, the problems that people are facing there. So we were really fortunate then to have the people, someone like Father Ari, to share his own experiences. And I hope this will be an inspiring, will inspire all of us to even do further and do better our Bayanihan spirit, so that we, really build a strong and cohesive society here and anywhere else that we go and we reside in. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Ranvir. Now, Ms. Nina, by the way, yes, Bayanihan spirit is evolving. So it's not just about carrying and helping in the moving of a house, but actually we're helping improve a person's lives. I think that's sort of one of the Bayanihan spirit actions that we can do. Ms. Nina, your turn, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you once again for the opportunity to be part of this Bayanihan lecture series in behalf of the Philippine Chambers of um, Commerce in Singapore, soon to be Philippine Chambers of Commerce in Singapore. I would want to summarize all the message that I received from Father Ari to create a safe space and see the difference between each other, so we can create new leaders creating new leaders. For us in the Philippine Chambers of Commerce, business people creating new business people and collaborating with each other towards the direction that we all wanted to have, which is fighting not just the virus, the pandemic, but poverty, the virus that is very much needed, especially back in the Philippines. So let's all do it. Let the Bayanihan spirit continue. Yeah, that's all, and thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And Father Harry, your last but not the least, Father Harry, your final word to inspire us.
Well, maybe just to say that I think we all are inspired to do good, to help others. That voice is there, but sometimes it's drowned out by all our other concerns, not because we're so busy. So maybe to always listen to that voice and not to be dumb to it, to listen to that voice, and number two, to take care of yourself, because we cannot give what we do not have. No, so of course we want to help, but if we are so stressed out, so burned out ourselves, then it's hard to have energy to help others. So those two things.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that sort of wraps up our panel discussion. Please don't leave yet. We hope everyone has been inspired, learned something new, and is challenged to do more. So thank you so much to all our panelists. And before we end, I would like to call Ms. Margarita Locsin, who's the membership chair of Philippine Chamber of Commerce, to give us the closing remarks. That's please.
Okay, sorry, let me start again. I just want to tell Father Ari, as an Ican, you head my brother's school. So this is really a pleasure to have you here today. Okay, and I, being an Ican in Xavier, charity and helping others is part of our DNA. It's something I really appreciated growing up in ICA. So that I know where you get it from. And in fact, listening to your speech, quite frankly, before I go to my real speech about your speech, it was funny because I realized we had the same train of thought. So anyway, let me go to the proper speech. So thank you, Father Ari, for your very timely update on the cooperative efforts being done back home. And most of all, for your frank and honest, but also, in my opinion, accurate analysis of our country's situation. Indeed, the natural disasters that have befallen our motherland since 2020 and immediately followed by the COVID pandemic have highlighted the need to revive, revisit, and rejuvenate what the current generation may only remember as a photo of people carrying a nipa hat in a Civica textbook, Bayanihan. Yeah, I was going to say Araling Pandipunan, but that would date me. Right? Filipinos have long been reputed to be a hospitable and helpful people. But you are correct that the understanding of Bayanihan has, for the most part, and for most Filipinos, been only on the surface. Charitable acts are one-offs, usually to family and extended family, and the understanding of the true needs of beneficiaries and the long-term impact of giving are surely lacking. The concept of community is usually locally, regionally, or personality-driven, and unconscious biases across regions, religions, and other uniquely Filipino characterizations permeate throughout our society at large. It is indeed time for us to take stock and rethink how we practice Bayanihan as a person, as a family, as a community, and as a country. We must move from charity to social engagement, from family to the wider community, beyond our home's perimeter walls and into our streets and farms and far-flung villages. We must look at the bigger picture to influence our people from within, from the simplest things like practicing responsible and objective digital citizenship in a very digital age, to more urgently providing critical mental health support to a generation that has not experienced a time as complicated as today. And so we must, as Father Ari pointed out, harness the spirit of Bayanihan that has been revived in this most critical time and use the learnings of the pandemic to improve on one of our people's strengths. We must do so not because it is a time of crisis, but because it is crucial to our growth as a people and as a nation. If we are to make a real difference in crafting the future of the Philippines, Bayanihan must become integral to our being and must resonate in everything from politics to society to the environment. It must become part of the Philippine core, part of our heart, and part of our soul. Before I end, I would like to thank Father Ari again. It was uplifting to hear from one like us who was an overseas Filipino at one point. It was also enlightening to hear about your ERDA Foundation. It is rare to hear about a truly thoughtful, and I spell that F-U-L-L, and mindful institution. Education is the key to our country's emancipation from our troubled past. By holistically educating the youth and empowering them with knowledge and equipping them with social support, the Philippines can move forward and become the economic powerhouse it was always meant to be. Thank you, Ambassador Yap, and to the team at the Philippine Embassy for all the work they did during the pandemic and continue to keep doing for us as the pandemic rages on. We are truly blessed to have, and I am being subtle when I say this, and this has been officially concurred with, the best Philippine embassy in the world.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you also, Ranveer, Minnie, Mary Ann, Nina Lynn, and the Bayanihan Society for hosting today's event. Where would we be without your support and your tireless efforts to uplift the Filipino community here in Singapore? This has been an inspiring way to open a new week. May the spirit of Bayanihan burn brighter in our hearts. Fortify us with the strength and resilience to see this pandemic through, because we are, as the modern cliche goes, certainly much stronger and much better together. Thank you, Father Ari.
Thank you. Wow. And Bob, would you like to say something about being the best, being the best Philippine embassy? Congratulations. That's nice to hear. And of course, Father Ari, very wonderful to hear you speak of. I mean, I don't have to repeat whatever everyone else has said, but it's very uplifting, of course, encouraging, and of course, no, the Filipino is strong. I mean, we don't go anywhere. There's a Filipino in every country in the world. If you don't go out, that means you go out because you're strong and you want to do better. So hopefully that same kind of aspiration will also be in the people that are in the country itself, and less of politics and more of Bayanihan spirit. But I'm not going to expand anymore. I would like to call Miss Marianne Argilius-Chua, who will be presenting something for Father Ari. Marianne, please.
Thank you, Minnie. Father, on behalf of the Philippine Bayanihan Society Singapore, it is my pleasure to present to Father Ari a small memento to remember our Bayanihan Lecture 2021. This memento is actually a cufflink with stylized Vanda orchid motif, which is the Singapore's national flower, encapsulated in rhodium with black enamel. We hope that when Father Ari wears a barong, he will be reminded of how he has truly inspired each one of us here with his message on the Bayanihan spirit that lives on and actually thrives during this period of pandemic through many acts of kindness. We wish him and ERDA Foundation and the Xavier School all the success and God's abundant overflowing blessings. Thank you, Father Ari.
Very welcome. It's very welcome, and thank you for that. I look forward to wearing that with my barong, although during the pandemic, we rarely wear formal attire. But it is very hopeful. Now looking forward to better times. Thank you.
And hopefully it will be soon. It will be soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we are concluding our third Bayanihan lecture. Just like to say my usual last words and last reminders. So for those For those who do not know, for those who do not know Bayanihan Center is, you can see it in the picture behind me. It's at 43 Pasir Panjang Road. As I said, because of the pandemic, it's not open every day. So I think just a few days a week this time. Hopefully we'll be back to normal days of doing things soon, sooner than soon. So yes, for any question, please call 6474-3700 for any inquiry. Please visit visit our Facebook page at /Bayanihan Society SG. Follow us on Instagram, Bayanihan Society SG. And any donation is welcome through giving.sg/PBSS. As you know, the society is a nonprofit organization, so any donation, big or small, is always welcome. Also, we have set up a new YouTube channel, so you can please subscribe so you can see all the videos that we have done, webinars and lectures that we have done in the past. They're slowly being uploaded in our YouTube channel, so please subscribe. The next, we won't have any webinar nights in the month of September, but the next one will be in October 7th. The topic is wealth strategies for success even during the pandemic. Our guest speaker is Mr. Raymond Wong, who's the top wealth planning expert and chartered accountant. Again, thank you very much to our keynote speaker, Father Ari, and to our panelists, Ambassador Joseph Del Mar Yap, and to his staff, and to Attorney Ranvier, and also to Ms. Nina of Philippine Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to the sponsor, PNB Singapore, with their Allianz PNB Life Insurance team. Thank you too for those behind the scene, to Mr. Wilford Wong, the Ambassador Chief of Staff, who always responds in a jiffy, and also to Mr. Robert Cristobal, who produced the attractive poster for the lecture. He is the founder of Frame 316 Media and also the president of Alumni Association of Ateneo LSE Singapore. Thank you too, of course, to our ladies, Ms. Cecil Lagena, the Bayanihan Center Manager, Ms. Mindy Maestrado, the deputy, and other officers of our society who are working so hard behind the scenes, Ms. Marianne, Edwin, Luan, and Christy, and all those who help spread the word. Thank you all very much to our attendees whose active participation has made this a very engaging Bayanihan lecture, very inspiring, a lot of information and a lot of thinking and a lot of food for thoughts that we can sort of challenge ourselves with. So thank you so much. And by the way, we are celebrating, this is a pleasant way of celebrating our 20th anniversary. The society is 20 years old this month, just to let you know. So we all look forward to more exciting and more projects for the community. Thank you all very much for joining us today. The COVID-19 pandemic is still on, so please do take care. Please keep well, keep safe, enjoy your Sunday, and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.